The FBI disrupted an alleged plot by militiamen who reportedly wanted to start a war along the Texas-Mexico border.
The FBI has recently uncovered and foiled a sinister plot by a group of militiamen to start a war at the Texas-Mexico border. This disturbing plan, which was organized in 2022 and set to be carried out in October 2023, involved the killing of Border Patrol agents and immigrants crossing illegally. Brian C. Perry, Jonathan S. Odell, and Paul Fay were arrested by FBI agents for their involvement in this plot. The men believed that the country was being invaded by migrants and saw violence as the only way to address the situation. In this video, we will give you the details of the terrifying discovery on the U.S. border that changed everything. FBI foils plot to start a war on the border. Brian C. Perry, Jonathan S. Odell, and Paul Fay. Believing that the country was being invaded by migrants, these men planned to travel to the border to kill Border Patrol agents and immigrants crossing illegally. Their intentions were so extreme that one of them even left a threatening message for Texas Governor Greg Abbott, warning that they would take matters into their own hands if the government failed to secure the border. The FBI's intervention and subsequent arrests have shed light on the potential dangers posed by extremist groups and the importance of law enforcement in maintaining national security. It all began when the FBI received an anonymous tip in September 2022. The tipster revealed disturbing information about a group of individuals who were planning to carry out violent acts at the border. The FBI wasted no time and launched a full-scale investigation into the matter. Undercover agents infiltrated the group, gathering crucial evidence and intelligence. What they uncovered was beyond anyone's imagination. The plot involved Brian C. Perry, Jonathan S. Odell, and Paul Fay, three individuals who believed that migrants were invading the country. They were determined to take matters into their own hands and start a war with the Border Patrol. The FBI worked tirelessly to gather evidence against these individuals, meticulously documenting their plans and interactions. The investigation revealed extensive contact between Perry and Fay, with Fay expressing a strong desire to travel with Perry and another individual to the border and commit acts of violence. Armed with this evidence, the FBI took swift action. In late 2022, Perry and Odell were arrested by FBI agents. They were indicted by a grand jury on several charges, including conspiracy to murder a federal officer, conspiracy to assault a federal officer, attempted murder of a federal officer, and assault of a federal officer. The arrests sent shockwaves through the community as the true extent of their violent intentions became clear. But the story doesn't end there. The FBI's investigation continued, leading to the most recent arrest of Paul Fay in Tennessee. Fay now faces a single charge of owning an unregistered firearm silencer. The arrests of these individuals have undoubtedly prevented a potential tragedy at the border. As the FBI's investigation unfolded, it became clear that these militiamen held extreme views and were driven by a deep-seated belief that the country was being invaded by migrants. Their intentions were nothing short of shocking. In August of 2022, Perry and Odell agreed to go to war with the Border Patrol. Perry in particular expressed his intentions to a woman he attempted to recruit on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram. He stated that his intentions are to go down there and basically start a war. Perry even uploaded a TikTok video announcing their plan to travel to the southern border with the intent of shoot to kill. The video garnered attention, and Odell indicated in the comment section that they plan to go to Texas on October 2nd, 2022. In other TikTok videos, Perry blamed U.S. Border Patrol agents and viewed them as treasonous for allowing migrants to cross the border. The complaints filed against these militiamen do not specify the exact location on the Texas-Mexico border they intended to travel to. However, their intentions were clear. They believed that violence was necessary to address what they saw as an invasion. According to an undercover FBI agent who interacted with Perry, he stated, "I'm going down there to hold up a rifle. You come across, you're gonna lose your life." These chilling words reveal the militiamen's unwavering determination to use force to defend what they perceived as a threat to the country. The investigation also uncovered their grievances with the federal government. Perry and Odell began discussing their frustrations as early as November 2021. They felt that the government was not addressing their concerns and decided to take matters into their own hands. In their quest to recruit more members to their cause, Perry and Odell attempted to organize a trip to Washington, D.C. with the intention of stopping the madness going on. They even shared maps of the Capitol and other governmental buildings, indicating a willingness to take their extremist beliefs to the heart of the nation's capital. The motivations behind their actions were rooted in a belief that violence was the only way to make people open up their eyes. They saw themselves as patriots, willing to sacrifice everything to protect what they believed was under threat. To understand why Perry and Odell thought things were so bad, they decided to take matters into their own hands. We have to understand the massive waves of unlawful crossing at the southern border. Unlawful crossing reaches year high.
a moment of prayer before wading into the freezing waters of the Rio Grande. The youngest today, just 2 months old. This is part of a huge surge of migrants to reach the U.S. border in recent days, over 4,000 a day in the Mexican state of Coahuila alone.
In September 2023, the United States witnessed a staggering increase in unlawful border crossings along the southern border. According to preliminary government data obtained by CBS News, more than 200,000 migrants crossed the border unlawfully during this month alone. This marks the highest level recorded in 2023, painting a grim picture of the challenges faced by the Biden administration in containing the mass migration gripping the region. Internal statistics from the Department of Homeland Security reveal that Border Patrol agents apprehended approximately 210,000 migrants who entered the U.S. without authorization in between official ports of entry along the Mexican border. This represents a significant increase from the 181,000 apprehensions recorded in August. The numbers are alarming and highlight the urgency of addressing this issue. September's apprehension tally is the highest since December 2022, when Border Patrol apprehended 222,000 migrants, making it the second highest monthly figure on record. The current all-time high was reached in May 2022, with 224,000 migrant apprehensions. These numbers underscore the severity of the situation and the need for immediate action. The unprecedented surge in unlawful border crossings in September 2023 has raised concerns about the capacity of the U.S. immigration system to handle such a large influx of migrants. It has also put a strain on resources and personnel at the border, further complicating the efforts to maintain control and security. Not only did September 2023 witness a significant increase in unlawful border crossings, but it also marked a milestone in U.S. history. For only the second time ever, annual migrant apprehensions along the U.S. southern border surpassed 2 million. The unpublished data from the Department of Homeland Security reveals that this pertains to fiscal year 2023, which just ended. The highest ever annual tally was recorded in fiscal year 2022, with a staggering 2.2 million total migrant apprehensions. These numbers highlight the magnitude of the challenge faced by the Biden administration in managing the influx of migrants. The administration has been grappling with the task of processing and addressing the needs of a massive number of individuals entering the country unlawfully. The strain on resources, personnel, and infrastructure has been immense. In addition to those apprehended after entering the U.S. illegally, tens of thousands of additional migrants were processed by border officials at ports of entry in September. The Biden administration has implemented a policy that allows roughly 1,500 prospective asylum seekers to enter the country each day at official crossings if they secure an appointment through a smartphone app. While this policy aims to provide a legal pathway for those seeking asylum, it has added to the challenges of managing the influx of migrants. However, not all those apprehended are allowed to stay in the U.S. Some migrant adults are given the option to voluntarily return to Mexico or are placed in a fast-track deportation process if they don't claim asylum or fail initial humanitarian screenings. Despite these measures, government figures show that most migrants in recent months have been released from U.S. border custody and instructed to undergo immigration court proceedings. Unfortunately, due to a backlog of unresolved cases that has reached 2 million and continues to grow, the deportation process can take years to complete. The Department of Homeland Security acknowledges the challenges posed by these migration patterns and attributes them to smugglers' use of misinformation to prey on vulnerable individuals. The administration is working to strengthen consequences against those who enter the country illegally and has already carried out over 250,000 returns or deportations of migrants since early May. However, the department emphasizes that a long-term solution to the border challenges requires the U.S. Congress to modernize the outdated immigration and asylum system. The unprecedented surge in annual migrant apprehensions along the U.S. southern border and the challenges faced by the Biden administration highlight the urgent need for comprehensive immigration reform. The system is strained, and the backlog of unresolved cases continues to grow. As the administration works to address the immediate issues at hand, the call for long-term solutions becomes even more pressing. The surge in unlawful border crossings along the southern border of the United States has not only posed significant operational challenges for Border Patrol and other federal agencies, but has also had far-reaching implications on humanitarian and political fronts. One of the most visible impacts of the record levels of unlawful migration is the strain it has placed on resources in American communities. From large interior cities like New York and Chicago to border towns like Eagle Pass and El Paso, communities communities have been tasked with providing shelter and support for the influx of migrants. New York City, in particular, has been required to accommodate over 100,000 migrants in hotels, tent facilities, and even an airfield over the past year. This humanitarian challenge has stretched the capacity of these communities and highlighted the need for additional resources and support. The political pressures faced by the Biden administration on immigration and border policy have also intensified.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly.
Immigration and border issues have consistently ranked among the administration's worst polling issues, and they are seen as a major political vulnerability as President Biden approaches re-election in 2024. Republican lawmakers have criticized the administration's decision to end some Trump-era border programs, arguing that it has contributed to the record numbers of migrant crossings. On the other hand, the Biden administration attributes the historic migration influx to the deteriorating economic and security conditions in Latin America and other parts of the world. The reality of the situation is complex and lies somewhere in the middle. The surge in unlawful border crossings can be attributed to a combination of push and pull factors. Large-scale migrant releases, the perception of a more lenient border policy, and the availability of job opportunities in the U.S. have likely fueled more migration. At the same time, the societal collapse in Venezuela and socio-political crises in countries like Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua have pushed many migrants to flee their homelands. The intensity of the political backlash faced by the Biden administration is evident, with even Democrats in communities struggling to house migrants openly criticizing the administration's handling of border issues. New York's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul, for example, has expressed concerns about the number of migrants ending up in New York after simply claiming asylum along the U.S.-Mexico border. As the Biden administration continues to grapple with the complexities of immigration and border policy, it is clear that a comprehensive and long-term solution is required. Modernizing the immigration and asylum system, addressing the root causes of migration, and finding a balance between humanitarian assistance and border control are crucial steps in addressing this multifaceted issue. Why are there so many illegal crossings? In recent years, the United States has witnessed a series of policy changes aimed at addressing the issue of illegal border crossings. One policy that had a significant impact on the numbers was Title 42, a pandemic-era immigration policy enacted by former President Donald J. Trump in March 2020 and expanded under the Biden administration. Title 42 was implemented as a means to quickly expel migrants who attempted to cross the border illegally, citing public health concerns. This policy allowed Border Patrol agents to swiftly remove individuals without the need for lengthy legal proceedings. For over 3 years, Title 42 was utilized as a tool to deter illegal crossings and maintain control over the border. However, in May of last year, Title 42 expired, leading to a drastic change in the situation at the border. The number of border apprehensions dropped by more than 40% in June, as the policy was no longer in effect. This expiration had unintended consequences, as the number of illegal border crossings began to increase steadily month after month. Since the expiration of Title 42, Border Patrol agents have been overwhelmed by the surge in illegal crossings. In September alone, they made nearly 220,000 apprehensions, highlighting the magnitude of the issue. The absence of Title 42 has created a void in the enforcement of border control, allowing more migrants to attempt illegal crossings without immediate consequences. The Biden administration, recognizing the need to address the situation, had initially created more legal pathways of entry for migrants, while simultaneously implementing harsher punishments for those crossing illegally. This strategy aimed to provide alternatives for migrants seeking entry into the United States while discouraging illegal crossings. As a result, unlawful crossings did decrease in May and June as more migrants opted to use the new and expanded legal pathways. However, experts in immigration policy and border control never expected this drop to be a long-term solution. Denise Gilman, a professor and director at the University of Texas at Austin's Immigration Clinic, explains that every time there are changes in border policies, there is a temporary lull as people try to understand and navigate the new regulations. But inevitably, the numbers start to increase again as migrants adapt to the new circumstances. The expiration of Title 42 has created a void in the deterrence of illegal crossings. Migrants, aware of the changing policies, have taken advantage of the situation and continue to attempt illegal border crossings in search of a better life. The absence of swift and efficient enforcement has emboldened many to take the risk, knowing that the consequences are not as immediate as they once were. The impact of Title 42's expiration goes beyond the numbers. It has also sparked debates and controversies surrounding the effectiveness of U.S. immigration policies. Critics argue that the Biden administration's approach is too lenient, allowing for a surge in illegal crossings. On the other hand, proponents of more compassionate immigration policies policies argue that the root causes of migration should be addressed, rather than focusing solely on deterrence. As the numbers continue to rise, it becomes evident that a comprehensive and long-term solution is needed to address the root causes of illegal border crossings. The expiration of Title 42 has highlighted the complexities of immigration policies and the challenges faced by Border Patrol agents. It is clear that a balance must be struck between providing legal pathways for migrants and maintaining effective border control. Illegal border crossings are not solely a result of U.S. policy changes. They are also influenced by global migration patterns and the complex factors that drive people to leave their home countries in search of a better life. One significant factor is the economic instability experienced by many countries, which pushes individuals to seek opportunities elsewhere. Take Venezuela, for example. The country's economy crumbled about a decade ago, leading to a massive outflow of its population. The dire economic conditions, hyperinflation, and scarcity of basic necessities have forced countless Venezuelans to leave their homes and embark on a perilous journey to the United States. In the past year, Venezuelans accounted for the third most illegal border crossings, following Mexicans and Guatemalans. The sheer number of Venezuelans seeking refuge at the southern border since the beginning of the pandemic is staggering and highlights the severity of the situation. Similarly, gang violence and rampant crime in Central American countries such as Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador have driven many to flee their homes in search of safety and security. These Northern Triangle countries have experienced high levels of violence, with gangs exerting control and instilling fear in local communities. The threat of violence and the lack of effective law enforcement have compelled individuals, including families, to undertake the dangerous journey to the United States. The Northern Triangle has seen a significant increase in the number of migrants attempting illegal border crossings in recent years. Political instability is another driving force behind global migration patterns. In countries where political unrest and authoritarian regimes prevail, individuals often face persecution and human rights abuses. They are left with no choice but to flee their home countries in search of safety and freedom. For instance, individuals from Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua have taken their chances at the border, hoping to be released, at least temporarily, into the United States. The lack of diplomatic relationships between the United States and these countries has made it difficult to establish agreements for the return of migrants, further complicating the situation. The combination of economic shock, violence, and political forces has displaced millions of people worldwide, leading them to seek refuge in the United States. While historically, most migrants came from Mexico, there has been a significant shift in recent years. Migrants from other countries now account for nearly half of all illegal border crossings. This diversification of migrant demographics reflects the changing dynamics of global migration patterns. The United States and Mexico have had a long-standing diplomatic arrangement in place, where Mexico agrees to accept Mexican migrants deported by the United States. This agreement is typically established before the United States deports or expels migrants back to their home countries. When Title 42 was enacted, Mexico also agreed to accept expelled migrants from the Northern Triangle. However, migrants from countries that lack such diplomatic relationships have taken their chances at the border, hoping for a chance at a better life. The absence of diplomatic agreements has left these migrants in a precarious position, uncertain of their fate. The stories of migrants from various countries highlight the desperation and determination that drive individuals to risk everything for a chance at a better life. The journey to the United States is fraught with danger as they face treacherous terrains, human traffickers, and the constant fear of being apprehended. Their stories serve as a stark reminder of the dire situations they are fleeing and the lengths they are willing to go to seek safety and opportunity. In recent months, there has been a significant increase in the number of family members attempting to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. This surge in family crossings has presented unique challenges for border officials, as detaining and enforcing punishments on families is more complex compared to dealing with single adults. Traditionally, single adults accounted for the majority of border apprehensions. However, the landscape has shifted, and U.S. border officials have apprehended more family members trying to cross the border from June to September than in any previous full fiscal year. This shift in demographics has put a strain on resources and has required border officials to adapt their strategies. Detaining families presents a different set of challenges compared to single adults. There are legal limitations on how long children can be held in detention facilities, which means that families cannot be detained for extended periods. The Biden administration, recognizing the need for a more humane approach, ended the practice of detaining families in 2021. This change was made in response to concerns about the well-being of children and the negative impact of prolonged detention on their development. The decision to end family detention was a step towards a more compassionate approach, but it also created logistical challenges for border officials. Families are often released into the United States while they await their immigration hearings, which can can take months or even years due to backlogs in the immigration court system. This release policy has led to overcrowding in border facilities and strained the resources of Border Patrol agents. Enforcing punishments on families is also more difficult compared to single adults. The legal system has limitations on the consequences that can be imposed on families, particularly when children are involved. The focus is on the best interests of the child, and there are restrictions on the length of time children can be held in custody. This presents a dilemma for border officials, as they must balance the enforcement of immigration laws with the well-being of children. The rise in family crossings can be attributed in part to the changes in U.S. immigration policies. The end of family detention and the release of families into the United States have created an incentive for families to show up at the border instead of waiting for an appointment at an official checkpoint or through a humanitarian program. The perception that families have a higher chance of being released into the United States has led to an increase in family crossings. The challenges faced by border officials in dealing with family crossings highlight the complexities of immigration enforcement. Striking a balance between enforcing immigration laws and ensuring the well-being of children is a delicate task. Border officials must navigate legal limitations, resource constraints, and the need for a compassionate approach. Experts argue that the U.S. policies aimed at deterring people from crossing cannot work in the long term, especially when it comes to families. The desire to keep families together and the legal restrictions on detaining children make it challenging to effectively enforce punishments. The focus should be on addressing the root causes of migration and providing viable legal pathways for families to seek asylum or other forms of protection. As the numbers of family crossings continue to rise, it becomes clear that a comprehensive and compassionate approach is needed. This includes addressing the backlog in the immigration court system, providing adequate resources for border officials, and working towards long-term solutions that address the root causes of migration. But in America, the consequence of the migrant surge has been dire, as cities have had their resources stretched to its limit, and some people are now asking if the migrant surge could bankrupt cities. Could the migrant surge bankrupt cities? As the immigration crisis continues to unfold, cities across the United States find themselves grappling with unprecedented challenges. The surge of migrants, arriving in vast numbers from various countries, has created a perfect storm that cities are ill-prepared to weather. The impact of this crisis is not limited to border states alone. It reverberates throughout the nation, affecting states and cities far from the front lines. One of the most pressing issues cities face is the sheer volume of newly arrived migrants. In fiscal year 2022, over 817,000 new cases were filed in immigration courts across the country. However, this number exploded to nearly 1.5 million new cases the following fiscal year, highlighting the magnitude of the crisis. The strain on resources, both financial and social, is immense, and cities are struggling to keep up. Let's take a closer look at the financial burden cities bear. In 2018, New York City spent approximately $258 million on immigration services. However, by fiscal year 2023, that number had skyrocketed to a staggering $1.47 billion. The city of Chicago, since October 2022, has spent over $194 million on its mission to support new arrivals. Denver, too, estimates its spending on migrant support services to be between $36.3 million and $39.1 million in 2023. These figures are not mere statistics. They represent the strain on city budgets and the impact on taxpayers. Housing, education, and healthcare are the three major expenses cities face when dealing with new arrivals. Providing adequate housing for migrants is a significant challenge, as the demand far exceeds the available resources. Education is another critical aspect, as cities must ensure that migrant children have access to quality education. However, the influx of students can strain school systems, leading to overcrowded classrooms and stretched resources. Healthcare is yet another high-ticket item, as cities must provide medical services to migrants, often with limited resources and funding. The idea of offering generous welfare benefits, from healthcare to education to the entire world, is simply mathematically impossible. The strain on city budgets is becoming increasingly evident, and the math is not adding up in state after state. The current system is unsustainable, and cities are reaching their breaking point. The challenges cities face are not solely financial. They also extend to the social fabric of communities. In the past, migrants would rely on their social networks to settle into a new city or state. These networks provided support and assistance, easing the burden on cities and states. However, in the current crisis, many migrants lack these built-in connections. Venezuelans, in particular, have been the largest source of nationality among the new migrants. Unlike previous waves of migration, Venezuelans do not have well-established communities to rely on. This absence of private sources of comfort forces them to become dependent on the limited resources of state states and cities. While immigration has traditionally been an area of federal oversight, experts argue that there simply isn't enough federal funding to support cities in dealing with this crisis. The current level of federal funding provided to state and local governments falls far short of the actual need. Congress allocated a mere $800 million for a FEMA program to assist cities in aiding newcomers, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the financial strain cities face. For instance, the $145 million allocated to New York City is less than 10% of what the city spent on migrant services in fiscal year 2023. This lack of federal support leaves cities struggling to provide essential services to migrants and their communities. To compound the challenges, some states have resorted to busing migrants from the border to cities inside the country. Texas, for example, has transported over 100,000 migrants to cities such as New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, and Los Angeles. This coordinated and dramatic busing of asylum seekers is unprecedented and adds another layer of complexity to the crisis. The cost of illegal immigration in Texas alone is estimated to have reached a staggering $13.4 billion in 2023, with over $148 million spent on busing migrants to sanctuary cities. The actions of southern states like Texas have been met with criticism, with many viewing them as political stunts rather than genuine attempts to address the crisis. The lack of coordination and consultation with mayors and governors of the receiving cities further exacerbates the challenges faced by these cities. The sudden influx of migrants caught cities off guard, leaving them scrambling to respond effectively. The situation is further complicated by the politicization of immigration. Some cities, once known as sanctuaries, are now grappling with the consequences of their open arms policies. The call for more migrants to come and live in these cities has put their claims to the test. In response, other southern states, such as Arizona and Florida, have engaged in the practice of flying and busing migrants to these sanctuary cities and states. This tit-for-tat strategy echoes former President Trump's suggestions for managing undocumented migrants and adds a political dimension to the crisis. As the pressure continues to mount, cities like Chicago and New York have started implementing more restrictions on migrant drop-offs to stem the flow.
Mayor Adams has filed a lawsuit against 17 Texas charter bus companies that have been dropping off migrants here in the city without any advance notice for more than a year and a half.
In January 2024, Mayor Adams of New York City even announced a lawsuit against charter companies hired by Texas to transport migrants into the city. However, what cities need most right now is federal assistance. The federal government's late response to the crisis has left cities without a mechanism for reimbursement and support. Without proper funding and coordination, cities will continue to suffer the consequences of the immigration crisis for a long time. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.